Hey folks, it's Carmen here from Urban Farm School. Today we're in our workshop here at the Urban Farm Permaculture Project. It's cold outside, it's snowing, but no matter what, we're sowing our tomatoes today. So earlier I prepared a really fantastic seed starting mix that was a high test mix for my heavy feeders like tomatoes and peppers and eggplants and so on. So the reason I do that is I know that my tomatoes and peppers are going to be under lights for a really long period of time before they get to be transplanted out into the garden end of May, early June in our area. So I want to make sure that I have a very wonderful, fertile and living soil mix so that my plants can produce really beautiful roots. And in my world, more roots means more fruits. So that's what we're starting with today, is a really good high test soil starting mix, seed starting mix. So I've got the container of preference for my tomatoes and peppers. I love starting with this size. I'm noticing a deterioration in the quality of these cell pack options these days, in that the plastic is really thin and they all come together, joined together in these little seams, and when you try to take them apart, sometimes you end up ripping one of them. So we use duct tape to heal our little broken cells, and I'm going to use that one today just to show you how to start these tomatoes. So I've got my seed starting mix here. It's quite damp. So basically, I mean, I could do that in there too, but I've got a setup, so I'm just going to fill those up. It's quite a damp mix, and I like that because it means that I don't really have to add a lot of water. It also means I can retain the integrity of the position of my seed. Now it looks full right now, but what we're going to do is just give a slight little push, and that's just to make sure that once we get our seeds in there and we water, that we won't get any settling. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. So I'm going to set that aside, and in the meantime, I'm going to talk to you about some general guidelines for how deep to plant your seeds. So for example, if you start with some super fine seeds like lettuce and carrots, you want to plant your seeds in at a depth of 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, no deeper than that. If you get them in too deep, they won't germinate. So as long as you've got them within that zone, you'll be happy. When we go to medium-sized seeds like the ones we're planting today, which are tomatoes, I've got a couple varieties here we're going to put in today, then we're looking at about 1/4 of an inch in depth, sometimes 1/2 inch, depending on the size of the seeds. And tomato seeds do vary in size, so the seed size is a general guideline. And if you're going with larger seeds like corn or beans, you're looking at 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches, and even sometimes as much as 2 inches down. So those are general guidelines, and so even if the seed packet doesn't tell you how deep to plant your seeds, as this one doesn't, then you have a general idea of what to do. So we're going to get ready now to plant our tomato seeds. Okay, we've got our seed, our little flat all ready to go. So what we're going to do is just create some little holes to put our seeds in, just like that. We're at about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch with these. So I've got a couple varieties of tomato seeds I'm going to put in. These are fresh seeds, so I'm not super concerned about germination as long as I can get them out of the seed packet. So these guys I've got, they're going to go right in here. 1, 2, 3. You can plant 2 seeds per, but I already have a ton of tomatoes ready to go. So now this one was JD's Special Seed Tex, and I've also created already a marker for that variety, so that's going right in before I forget what I've put in there. And often I'll add my markers before I sow the seeds so I don't get confused. The next variety is a different one, cherry tomato, so it's going to go right in there. So these are seed markers you can buy or you can make your own, and you need to use an indelible marker like a Sharpie that won't fade too much in the sun, and it won't wash off with water. So now we've got our second variety, which is a beautiful cherry variety. Now look, I don't know if you can see the difference in the size of those seeds. I'm going to pull out one of these guys. I don't know if you can see that, but there's JD's. It's quite a bit larger seed. So that gives me a clue. So I'm going to put that one back in there. That's a 1/2 inch seed. This one is a little bit shallower. I'd say it's about a 1/4 of an inch seed. Maybe a 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch to 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to pop those in. You can add 2 seeds per. If you were going to do that, I would actually make 2 holes in each cell so that they're easier to separate once you do get germination. But since I have so many tomato seeds already started, I'm not too concerned if I don't get germination on one. Okay, so we've got our little buddies in here, and I'm just going to add just a little bit of soil on top. This soil is actually quite damp. Just a little bit on top of that guy, and then we're just going to firm ever so slightly, leaving a little bit of a divot. And the reason we want to leave a little bit of a divot is that once we get watering these guys, there's a place for that water to go into. So in a few moments, we're going to take the next step, and that's giving these guys a last little blast of water. So now that our seeds are planted, we're going to take the next step. We'll just imagine that this entire flat is all planted with tomatoes. But for the purpose of today's video, I just wanted to show you this one flat. So typically, by the time the entire flat gets planted, your seed starting mix has a tendency to sort of dry out a little bit on the top. So to deal with that, what we like to do is take a little spray bottle on a gentle spray. I always check it ahead of time because sometimes I don't know why, but it seems to change. That's a little tight. Let's back that up. Okay, so we've got, oh, it's still a little tight. All right, so we just want to moisten the top of our seed starting mix to make sure that there's enough moisture present in that 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch that these seeds are living in for them to start germinating. Now at this point in the process, we're going to take our plastic cover. And if you don't want to use something like this, or you're using a flat that is more like this style, you can actually just cover that with saran wrap or a piece of cardboard or something that's just going to keep that moisture in the soil. Because as long as there's moisture and there's a little bit of heat, these guys are going to germinate just fine. So we like to use these because we can use them over and over and over. And so we put that over our seed tray. And now these guys are ready actually to go into a warm place. So I put these on top of my fridge and freezer because it's a perfect temperature for these guys to have that nice warm soil. And the next procedure after that is you're going to take the lid off as soon as you see signs of germination. So even if 99% of the flat is not germinated, you don't see any sprouts, if only one of those cells has a sprout coming up out of the soil, that's when you take this lid off and you get these little babies under lights. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video on seed starting containers. If you've enjoyed today's video, please do consider subscribing to our YouTube channel at Urban Farm School, and check out our website online at urbanfarmschool.ca, where you can learn to grow some awesome.